you don't always need the big influencer names to spread the word and create awareness and create attraction. The smaller the influencers are, the more dedicated, the more passionate, or the more authentic they could be.
All right, let's get started. So today I have the pleasure of welcoming Jan Kuhlmann as my guest to our conversation series, and today we're chatting a bit about, what should you keep in mind when working with influencers and content creators. What can be learned from working with different kinds of creators. What can you do about the tracking and all other interesting learnings as well. But Jan, just to introduce you a bit first, so just to give people a bit of a background, currently you're working at Xsolla, and we're going to talk a bit more about that later. But in your previous life, you were running influencer marketing for Ubisoft, especially in the DACH region, if I remember correctly. And part of this was, doing quite many influencer collaborations. So, it's great that you came here to share your expertise with us, and looking forward to everything you have to share with us. But maybe good to make a couple of notes to start with. So obviously, you were working with at Ubisoft with very known titles such as Far Cry, Anno, the Anno series, and so on, and mostly on the PC and console side of things. So just to set the scene a bit for our viewers. But great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hi, Petri. Hi, folks. A little correction to my work at Ubisoft. I was not specifically working as an influencer manager, but I was working. So I worked more than 8 years at Ubisoft in the DACH region, GSA territory, so the German-speaking countries. I worked 6 years as a brand marketing manager, and the last 3 years I spent a lot of my time working on the Ubisoft store. So the web destination where you can where you have direct sales, either download directly or you could even get physical goods from there. And on this work and project, I was in touch with our influencer team at Ubisoft quite often, and we were looking at what we have learned in the past years for building up brands and releasing games. What could be applied for a destination like the Ubisoft store, because we wanted to increase the awareness. And when I entered the project team on the Ubisoft store, there was a growth trajectory for those direct sales for PC games and related merchandise, and especially pre-orders were quite an important element of the Ubisoft store. So what we did is, I was at the beginning working with those campaigns. I was used to work to build brand awareness, create interest, and so on. So this was mainly IO bookings on specific websites, then YouTube quite a lot, and social media networks. And in the first 6 months, I figured out that a couple of those campaigns were working well. Some others struggled in comparison to what we knew KPI-wise from our usual brand campaigns. And so I just tried out. I did a lot of testing here and there, and we tried to use programmatic buying as a format and a channel to promote those frequently coming up sales, right? So in the Ubisoft store, you had like at least every 4 to 6 weeks there was a sale, like any e-commerce shop has, whether it's video gaming or a copy of mine, mountain biking. You see it all the time. There's always a promotion, and some of those promotions are within a bigger campaign. So you need to make people aware on this and drive them to your store. And yes, I said at first I tried all the different channels I knew from before, and we ended up spending more and more budget in the social media networks, like Facebook, for example, but also Instagram. In the end, we also tried TikTok. But thinking of it, driving people to the store, Facebook was working quite well, and this was due to the fact that you have a lot of data available, so it's easy to track down the conversions and so on. This is something which other channels lacked possibility, and I was looking into how we can work around this. And something we tried new for a store was bringing in influencers to build up trust, to build up brand awareness. So we at first started to cooperate or collaborate with influencers we already knew. Those were rather medium to big video game influencers known in the territory. And
so we're talking about people who get like hundreds of thousands of views on their content and more than that. So very, very kind of well-known names in that sense, maybe.
Yes, indeed. I would say on YouTube, for example, it's like 50,000 to a couple of 100,000 views in a week. Those people get at least. And they are also known in the video games area. If you ask people, then many of them would say, yeah, I know this person, I heard about this person, I follow them on Instagram or whatsoever. And we started to work with them at first. And it came in quite naturally because we already had collaborations on brand campaigns, release campaigns for new titles, for new IPs together with them. So it was quite easy to say, okay, why not also promote our store? We have, let's say, winter sale coming up. We have this and that and plan, and maybe you can do an unboxing and then link out or reference the store and get people to know about our store and also click on a link out to get to the store. And this increased because the results we got on a KPI, like the cost per meal or the cost per view was quite good compared to the, let's say, traditional channels we used anyway. Like you can also think about create a trailer, put in all the promotional elements, put it on YouTube, promote it there. But to be honest, in the end, the KPIs look better if you do a similar thing with an influencer, and it feels way more natural. And sometimes you can even save the cost on creating the specific promo trailer. And this was the beginning. And then during the COVID time, we were hit up by an agency. They came up with the idea, why not use micro influencers to promote our store and bring in the awareness. And I thought at first, okay, why micro influencers? How could they help us? But the basic idea was, why not take 20 to even 40 smaller influencers, promote your, let's say, winter sales campaign, and compare the results to all your other channels and see if this is worthwhile, if it works or not. So we did and tried this, and in the first campaigns, the first two campaigns we did, we achieved better results in terms of the cost per meal or the cost per view, better results compared to the other influencers. And this was then like the starting point where I was looking more and more into how we can work with micro influencers moving forward. And micro influencers, in our terms, I don't know if this is the official term and calculation for this, but it was they were Instagram influencers. And they had less than 20,000 followers on Instagram. Many of them between 5 to 15, and few, like one or two, were at 40 to 50,000. So they were already a little bit bigger, but all the others were really, relatively small. And how this all started was the idea that the agency we were working with, they were looking that those people get a game from Ubisoft for free, for example, or that we can give out merchandise to them, so they have something to show up, and something coming from us will make them feel pretty good. And yeah, and so we started to do this, and it worked out pretty well as that. And so we started to use this more. And also I wanted to have a balance within the marketing budget investments, because we were on the path that we tried a lot of different channels, and we ended up doing just Facebook more. And not saying this has been a bad thing, but I wanted to always have a balance where you have more channels at your disposal.
Yeah, I mean, if you're too dependent on one channel and then something changes, like now with Apple's tracking restrictions, then that can have risks. So completely understand that. And maybe before we go into like maybe more specific examples of like how you were working with these influencers, but you mentioned that the results were really good, and that's something I like to pick your brain on. Like, why do you think it is that these smaller influencers can work better than the big names? Because like obviously they don't have as much reach, but they can be, if you work with a lot of them, then you can reach same amounts of people, but the results can even be better. So why do you think that is?
So starting with the let's say medium to bigger influencers who we're working with, they do this on a daily basis. So if they do an unboxing with us tomorrow, they do the next unboxing with someone else. If they promote our store campaign, a week later, they have another campaign they will put at the forefront, and they are paid for this. This is their job, and it's totally fine. And it's super professional. The work we did with them was always on a very high professional level. This has been great. But yes, looking at the audience from the audience standpoint, your influencers, your following, is promoting a lot of different stuff. So it does feel less authentic, or it becomes more repetitive for you as a follower compared to a micro influencer who's not used to do this. And this was really the sparking point for those micro influencers. We took them or brought them into the campaign, and they felt, as I said, very, very honored to be part of this. They were super engaged, super enthusiastic. And in the first campaigns, we needed to calibrate a bit, like what do we expect in terms of output, like a story and a post was usually the way to do it. So there was a calibration being done to get everyone on a more or less same level, and we were taking care on that we are playing brand safe. And then the nice thing happened that those influencers, those content creators, they, besides feeling honored, they came back to us and asked like, hey, I see there's another sale going on in the Ubisoft store. Can we be part of a campaign? We said like, we haven't had a campaign because the sale is rather small. But yeah, why not have you and the other creators on board within the next campaign? So the agency we work with, they were hit up by the creators who asked to be part again of our campaigns. And in my opinion, what I learned in the time when we worked with those people is one of the key elements for a creator, for an influencer, is that they stick out from the crowd. They want to feel special, and they want to be seen as being special. And because they were working on an official Ubisoft store campaign, they could show this, and they were getting physical goods from us to make their creations, share them with the audience. And I mean, within gaming, you have a lot of those collector people, and they have it stored everywhere. They take great pictures, and this is just great fans sharing their love and passion for something. And we became part of this, and they become part of let's call it Ubisoft universe. And this was the start of a great relation. And what you said, or what you mentioned, data protection hitting the performance of Facebook. Yeah, we exactly seen this. Like, we started with the influencer campaigns almost a year before. Then the first, I don't know even when exactly it was, but the data protection changes came in, and the performance of our ad campaigns were dropping pretty hard. So this was also a turning point for me to say, okay, let's look into more brand awareness campaigns where we can build on the Ubisoft store, that it becomes over time in the long run like the first address on your mind if you think about buying one of the games. Is it Far Cry? Is it Assassin's Creed? Anything else? If you're a PC player, getting the store on your mind was one of the main ideas. I think we worked for 1.5 years with those micro influencers, and they were changing. It's not always the same group. It really depends on what kind of promotion or game you want to work on. For example, when there was a new DLC coming out for Anno, the city building game, pretty famous in at least in the German-speaking countries, then you have a different kind of gamer player compared to Assassin's Creed or Far Cry, for example. So we had different pools of micro influencers, and yeah, we were incentivizing them to come on this campaign, and yeah, this worked out well. And then over the time being, I started to create a little bit more elaborated elements, or how to say, giveaways, gifts for those creators, because we were at this point that many of them already had a lot of our games, and they also received some of the merchandise from time to time. So some of them told us, okay, we have already this, that, and that from Ubisoft brands, and we were thinking, okay, what else can we do? Because I loved the passion from those micro influencers, I used some of my colleagues back then and worked with them together to create a special creator package for a pre-order campaign.
So when you were doing this promotion campaign for Far Cry 6, you put together this customized box for the creators where you had like a smoke launcher and all this other, interesting stuff for that they can showcase. So, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, exactly. For Far Cry 6, we created a really custom package for the creators. And the cool thing was we put those micro influencers in the first row. So we were not giving out this custom made wooden boxes to any other influencers or anyone else, but those micro influencers received it in the first place. And this is something where you really show how much you honor and love what they do, and you get a lot of love back. And in this case, it was like, we had this wooden box. There was this smoke thing in there, and so this was creating a lot of great images because it was red smoke. And as we were talking about Instagram lives from nice photos, from video content, and so on. So we just help them to even stick more out of the crowd and do something special with this specific box, with the Far Cry 6 pre-order campaign on the Ubisoft store. And I think we had 40 micro influencers. Most of them got really, really creative and passionate about it. We had a lot of outdoor shots, and many of them showed up with cosplays, costumes, even some toy guns and so on to reenact a bit the feeling of Far Cry 6. And this was so lovely to see. And I think, putting them in the first row is something so special for them that we really had this love relationship, or quite a lot of bonding for sure. And what we did on top of this was, and we didn't share this when we started the campaign, the best shots during this campaign were rewarded afterwards. So we had an internal raffle where we were looking at all the images, and the most creative ones received one of the merchandise figurines from Far Cry 6 a couple of weeks later. And no one knew about it. We didn't put it into the briefing. It was just another reward for people putting a lot of effort in their photo and post and campaign creations. And I think this was something where you can really see that this is working out pretty well in the long run, because you create and get fans on board which like you anyway, but doing all the stuff will make them love you. And this is just even more passionate, and this is what always fascinated me about any of the influencer and creator campaigns we did.
Yeah, and maybe just to summarize this a bit, I think the learnings from this are fantastic, and it's a great example of what can be achieved. But just to summarize a bit, maybe you could say that from like smaller influencers tend to have a very engaged audience, and then if you as a brand are able to work with them in a nice way, it kind of lets them show kind of added credibility towards their audience, and that's why they always or they will also like put a lot of effort into it. So I guess if there can be a great match there. And maybe another interesting thing I think you mentioned was that you use different influencers for the different games and campaigns. So I think that's also an interesting point, that even if in Facebook and so on, like because of the tracking restrictions, if you're not able to target so precisely, but with influencers, they have an idea of who their viewers are and who their audience is. So even if you're not like explicitly setting targeting to hit particular audiences, if you work with the right influencers, you're gonna reach those people very effectively. So it's
Indeed.
It's just like an alternative way of thinking about the targeting maybe, but you can also be very effective on that side of things, working with different kinds of creators, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, exactly. Like, you don't always need the big influencer names to spread the word and create awareness and create attraction. This is one, because of micro influencers, if you use a lot of them, then you can even outperform the reaches of the big ones. This is one. Then we always said we will only work with influencers who like the games who like the games, the genre we were promoting. If it's too random, I don't think it has an impact. And usually, in my opinion, the creators who work pretty well and also successful are the ones who really understand what they like and what their audience like about them, but also what their audience in general like. And then you can be very, very specific on your audience and reach the people you want to. And this is a great thing, and this is why you can even outperform some of the other channels or the big influencer campaigns.
That's a really good point. And if you understand the creator's audience, the better you understand it, the better you're able to understand, what kind of a fit there is. And I think this is a great example of that. And well, this is a very like game specific example, but we've certainly seen this in other cases as well, that advertisers who have a very different product. So let's say if it's like gaming hardware, accessories, or things like this, if they work with a creator whose audience is interested in gaming, even if they don't specifically do like hardware accessories, for example, but the audience, it is a shared interest in their audience, that can also work great. So just like to set a different example of that it can work really well when you understand who the audience is at the end of the day there.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
one thing I would also point out, it don't always need to be that your specific product is in the very center of the communication. I think this is going in this direction for the hardware,
Yeah.
because what I also saw during those campaigns with the smaller creators, their rooms, the gaming rooms look very. There's a lot of similarities. Like they use the same LED lighting tiles and so on, and the setup. And so as you as a follower of one of those creators, you like, for example, like the mouse or the keyboard or this and that.
Mm.
So and this might not be directly put in your face, like buy this keyboard, for example, but if it is part of their whole of their whole, how to say, of the whole image of the
Mm.
influencer, and part of their posts, their videos, their photographs, your audience has or likes to see this, and sometimes will just go out, search for the stuff and buy it. And this was also an approach for the Ubisoft store. We had this promotion. This was pretty much straight in your face, but also there was always more to it, more creative element where those influencers could also get creative in the way they arrange their photos or in the way they do their videos and so on.
Excellent. Yeah. And maybe a few more words we can talk about kind of measuring the success. You already mentioned that working with creators is definitely, it's the long game, right? So especially when you're in the PC and console world, there's always going to be relatively few, or at least at this stage, there's always going to be relatively few like direct sales for you to tie to the campaign. But how did you go about kind of estimating the results and so on? Were you looking at kind of the channel engagement, or what kind of things were you using there?
Yeah, this has been always, or tracking has always been a challenge in the space for multiple reasons, but just jump on the things most obvious. As you go with creators on Instagram, for example, it's very unlikely that that in general, the audience from Instagram is linking out to another destination.
Exactly.
So because it's less supported. It's not like in Facebook back then. And another element, another channel, YouTube, for example. YouTube is great for video content and trailers, and having a creator talk for hours or a long time, and then you can put down your link in the description below, and you can have a tracking link. But the engagement or the click rate in the end is not that high, and this is because the channel doesn't work for the purpose that you click out and go out to another destination. Just a few of your viewers will actually do this. And yeah, not similar. It's a different, obviously, it's a completely different channel. But Instagram and YouTube, from my experience, hasn't been the ones where you actually click out on a link and then go to the store or use a promo code to redeem it. So we were thinking about how we can work around a bit with those elements. One thing we did was using affiliate program. So we had an affiliate program in place. I brought this into the German-speaking Ubisoft store, and then it became an easy thing to bring in the influencers on this campaign and track how their audience or how the campaigns performed in terms of sales, direct sales coming from this. But it's always hard, and you need to consider this because you need to understand the actual channel you are using. You can't expect that you get skyrocket sales from an Instagram campaign unless you have really a full army of people sharing your product or your campaign, and it's really the thing everyone wants to have. But on those channels, YouTube included, it's less likely that you click out to another destination. But thinking of the long run, what you will do you have authentic creators, they are promoting your games, you get used to see Ubisoft Store. And the next time you think about, I want to pre-order Far Cry 6, for example, you may have this on mind. Then you Google for it, search for it, or you directly go to the Ubisoft Store. And this is what the power of brand building, in my opinion, is. And, and you have multiple campaigns anyway. Touching point.
Absolutely. Like what you mentioned about, you need to take the natural interaction behavior of the of the users in specific channels into account. I think that's a very great point.
Yeah.
So like you pointed out, on Instagram, on YouTube, you're there to watch the content. You're not there to leave the app and do something immediately, but it doesn't mean the sales don't follow through another channel. So like you said, direct traffic or organic search, these kinds of things, that's where you're probably going to see the uptake later on. And I think this is also something you didn't use in this specific case, but we've certainly seen advertisers use models to estimate how much uplift is generated in these other channels. So that's kind of another way of taking this into account. But yeah, definitely. So like you said, if it's any kind of Instagram, YouTube, or maybe any other kind of video-based medium, just take into account the behavior of the users and make sure you estimate the results based on that, because otherwise you're maybe incorrectly concluding that, hey, this isn't working, whereas you might be getting fantastic results, but you just need to be able to account for the natural behavior of the users in that specific channel, let's say.
This is something I would always vote for. I love performance marketing. If you can track down to the really smallest single digits, that's absolutely great. I love data, but most of the time, real life, in my opinion, is more holistic. And there's a lot of variables going into this, especially for building up a brand. And absolutely, yes, it's something for the long run. You want to win the marathon. I don't want to be the first on the first few miles. So yeah, and then what I thought about too is I was speaking about that back then. We used a lot of physical goods and created even physical goods, transforming this into the digital world. Or for example, if you're a smaller development studio, you can also think of why not create something special for your creators you work with in your game. Like, I love those ideas whenever it's about any badges or, let's say, specific gear you can have in a game, which makes you, again, if it's a multiplayer game, which makes you again stick out from the crowd. That's something that's a great reward. I know most of the game developers thinking of multiplayer games have this in their plan. And yeah, what I'd just like to point out is you can even think of the micro influencers to use and reward them and get their love, create a community out of this in the end. And this is something where you have a lot of possibilities, opportunities to play around with.
Yeah, and maybe yeah, like I think that's a great point, that if you distribute physical goods, that's always going to be fairly time intensive, and then take it, when it ships and so on, it can work really well. But I definitely like the idea of using digital products, like you mentioned, badges, or maybe like in-game skins that are only available to these people, or I mean, even a discount code, I think is I mean, if you provide the influencer with the game themselves, but if you give them a discount code that their viewers can use, then it's also a benefit to their audience, to watch them. So I think that's just another example of, how to make this attractive from the brands or the advertisers side, and kind of make it worth it a bit more in some ways.
Absolutely, yes. And a promo code is also a great source of tracking how much impact this created, because you can individualize this per creator. The only downside I have seen or experienced is sometimes you don't get an on top discount. So you may only be able to offer a general discount, which is offered for anyone else. You can make it a specific code, but in my opinion, this doesn't deliver on the expectation. It should be something special, which helps the influencers to be seen as special, and also his or her audience to make use of this additional discount. Yeah, and I said it could also help on your tracking to see how many visits and purchases you make in the end through those campaigns.
Yes, very very good points there. But yeah, I think that was kind of the overall agenda points I had in mind. So maybe if we let's summarize a bit with like key learnings. So if you had to pick some of the key learnings from this experience, what would be your highlights to the viewers?
First and foremost, micro influencers can have the same impact or even more impact than one of the big ones. So this helps you when you consider to work with them. You don't always need to just focus on the biggest ones. That's one. B, always consider and think about the channels you are going to use, or where your creators are going to post, promote your brand, your game, or your campaign, because this has implications to your performance expectations, and yeah, should be a very big part of your strategy. This consideration phase. And last but not least, the smaller the influencers are, the more dedicated, the more passionate, or the more authentic they could be. Most of them, you will only work forward with the ones who are really good and really passionate, and yeah, this passion can be turned into, let's call it, love.
Yeah, so just to like give a simple example, you can hire, a broad range of these smaller influencers, then see who creates the best material out there, and then keep working with those star performers, let's say. So rehiring the best performers and then exploring new ones and so on. So that's maybe what you were after there. I think, just to give like a practical example of how you
And
do this.
for those ones who have potential, help them to become better, because they are small. They haven't done this often, or many of them haven't done this before at any point. Help them to get better. In this case, we had a big help from the agency we work with, because they were managing all this detailed work with the influencers, and it also took some time that they understood what we wanted as a client, and what they were bringing over briefing to the creators in the end.
Yeah, so if you're not super experienced with working with creators, help bringing a partner along who can help you kind of speed up the process is definitely worth it there. All right, I think those were some very valuable points, and thank you so much for your insights. But maybe as a final point, from Ubisoft, very very exciting, very known gaming brands, but you're doing something a bit different at Xsolla right now. So can you tell a bit about what it is that Xsolla does, and what you guys are doing in the creator space these days?
Yeah, sure. So I joined Xsolla more than a year ago as marketing manager for Europe, and what we have at Xsolla, the product we have, is called Partner Network. And Partner Network is the place when you are onboarded with Xsolla, where you incentivize influencers at a desired scale on a global level, if you want, incentivize them to come on your campaign. So if you're thinking of a pre-order campaign, if you think of a release campaign, anything like this, new content you like to promote, you can get into Partner Network and put this campaign up, calibrate the settings you want to have, and then spread this out to the creators, and they will come and get on board to your campaign. We offer a single aggregated dashboard, and it's a self-service program, so you are in full control and all the details. But it really helps you easily access a big reach of influencers. And this is all narrowed into an affiliate program. So you have the direct trackability planted into your affiliate program. And this could be a good starting point to work with influencers and content creators.
Excellent. All right. I think that's about it. Thank you so much for your time. And it was great to have you on board. Thank you.
Thanks, likewise. Have a great day. Bye-bye.